Hello, this is my third video on the basic programming on C++ tutorial. In first two videos we talked about how to write the most simplest C++ program. It was a hello world program. It had different sections. We talked about what each and every section do, and we talked about how those sections are important and how they are very important aspects of C++ programming language. And today we are going to talk about variables and data types on C++ programming. Okay, I'm going to go through everything that I can remember regarding variables and data types, and I'll try to go as thorough as possible to very basic level. And today I just wanted to tell you that in my last videos I used Notepad, but most often I also use Notepad++ to write programs because it's helpful in a lot of ways. I just like the highlighting, and it's basically built up for programming. So, and it has a lot of tools that you can use. Once you get used to programming, it becomes really useful. I'll provide the download link on the description section below. You can check that out. Alright, and okay, let's go to data types and variables on C++. Okay, let's start in this way. Let's say that you have to memorize, someone asks you to memorize a certain number. Okay, let's say 23. Okay, someone asks you to remember 23 out of the blue, so there's 23. And let's say someone else comes in and asks you to remember another number, let's say 53. Okay, it's very simple for you to remember that there are two numbers, 23 and 53. But let's say someone comes to you after quite some time, ask you to remember what those numbers were. It becomes some sort of task for us to recall those numbers. It's not as easy as it is for computers. Okay, a hello world program is just a simple program that basically does nothing, and the thing about hello world is it just used to get into the programming world. It's not useful when you actually start doing any programming. So let's go to this 23 and 53. Now let's say someone comes to you and asks you to add those two numbers, 23 and 53. Not very difficult so far. You can just easily say it's 76, right? But if someone asks you to multiply 23 and 53, then that's going to be some sort of task for us, right? But and we can also do other simpler tasks. Add 1 to 53, that's pretty easy for us, you know. But for a computer in C++, this is how we do it. We assign one number to something we call variable. Let's say a is equals to 23 and b is equals to second number 53. Okay, and we can say that the result of addition of a and b is stored in a variable called c. Okay, so what we can do is c is equals to a plus b. Alright, and don't forget, I told you in earlier videos in C++, every statement ends with a semicolon. Okay, very important, otherwise it's going to give you a compiler error on C++. Most of the programming languages need a semicolon in the end. So that's the process of C++. Okay, obviously this is one of the simplest tasks a computer can do. Okay, let's say D stores product of those two numbers, so you can say it like that. Okay, now here 23 and 53, those are two numbers, okay, and we call them variables. And here each variables needs an identifier, okay, that distinguishes it from the others, okay. For example, here A, B, C and D are different identifiers, okay. 23, 53, those are numbers, variables. Now let's say if you don't have identifier, if we didn't have the concept of identifiers, you can store 23, you can store 53, but you don't know how to access those numbers again, okay. So assigning 23 to A, 53 to B is easier for us to recall those numbers again when we have to do some calculations with those numbers. But you know, if those 23 and 53 will not be changing, I mean, you can just write as 23 plus 53. You might think that's easier. Why didn't we do that? Why assign 23 to A, 53 to B? Sometime when you write a program, you will need to calculate a variable somewhere else, might have to calculate the result somewhere else. You might not know what the number is, or the number might come out of some other procedure that you will not know about. So it's always good if you could store a variable into something called identifier. It helps you distinguish different variables in a program, okay. Now let's talk about identifiers. A valid identifier in C++ is a sequence of one or more letters, digits, or underscore character. Underscore, that's shift, and it's usually above the dash key on keyboard. I know a few people who had no idea about what underscore is, so that's what the underscore is, after 0, shift and dash key, okay. A valid identifier can be anywhere from A to Z, 0 to 9, and only one underscore, okay. We cannot have more than one underscore on C++. So it can have capital A to capital Z, small a to small z, 0 to 9. Or it can be sequence of these characters, okay. You cannot use any other punctuation marks or symbols at all, and let's say and also very important, variable always have to start with a letter. It cannot start with a number. Not always. You can start with underscores, but the thing about underscore is when you start with underscore, it might be reserved to do certain functions with the compiler. So best practices, don't start with the underscore, okay. Just start with anything from A to Z, capital A to Z or small a to Z, and you can add numbers and underscore in between. So for example, you can have the identifier as ABC, ABC. Here you might notice, you might say these are all the same, why are we writing it different, because C++ is a case sensitive language, okay. That means capital A is not same as small a. ABC is a different sequence of letter because it have one capital A and small b and c, and second identifier we have used here all have 3 capital letters, and the third one is all small. So these 3 are different variable identifiers, okay. And also you can use abc10 or abc_10 oh, abc, okay, like that. Okay, it's just a sequence of these characters, just remember that. And on C++ there's important rule. You when you are considering inventing your own variables, there are some sequence of characters that are already used for program. Okay, those are called reserved variables. Okay, reserved keywords. Okay, and then you can find the list of keywords anywhere, but I'm gonna put it down in the description. What are the things that you cannot use as identifiers on C++, and that's very important. That's very important to know. You need to know what you cannot use, because when you're inventing sometime, when when you try to use already used keyword, it's gonna give you compiler error at that time. I'm gonna have those keywords in the description below. Some of those are like bool, let's say void, you cannot use those. You cannot use int means integer short form, bool means boolean short form, lot of things like false, true, those things are for, you cannot use those. Okay, and I'm gonna have most of them down below. There might be some missing, but and there are also other variables that can be used because they are used by operators sometime. Okay, for example, and is an operator, you can use and variable. Okay, not or are. Okay, yoxor, I'm also gonna have these in the description below. Okay, list of all these that you cannot use. All right, and next thing that you need to know about data types and variables on C++ is the concept of something called fundamental data types. Okay, fundamental data types. Fundamental data types are okay, let's start this way. Computer stores variables in a computer's memory. Okay, but the thing is that computer has okay, the computer have a okay, but a computer has to know when you ask computer to store or remember something. Yeah, the computer must know what kind of variable is it storing. Okay, for example, if you ask it to remember a number, let's say 10, then that's a number. The reason behind you making computer to know what kind of variable it is that later you might want to add something to 10. Okay, so let's say if you want to add 16 to 10 and make it 26, then computer knows that you can add 16 to 26 in certain way, and computer will perform that operation. But if you ask computer to store, let's say 10 data, okay, just 10 data, okay, like if you ask computer to remember that 10 data and you want to add 10 to that, the only way you can add it is you can make it like that. Okay, because 10 data is what we call a string. Okay, and it cannot make 10 data and add 10 to it and make it 20 data. That's not gonna happen in computer, in C++ programming. Okay, so it needs to know what kind of variable is it storing. All right, And to do that, there are something called fundamental data types in C++. Okay, the computer memories are organized in something we call bytes. Okay, a byte is a minimum. Byte is a bare minimum amount of memory that we can use. Okay, that we can use and manage in C++. Okay, and a byte can store relatively very small number of data, obviously. Usually small number of integer. Okay, any integer between 0 to 255 can store, a byte can store that many, those integers that fall between 0 to 255. Okay, not that many, that fall between 0 to 255. Okay, anything bigger than 255, it cannot be stored in one byte. All right, here I'm assuming that you know what an integer is. Integer are those numbers that does not have decimal values after decimal place, or it does not contain any decimal values. Those are the integers. Okay, 0 to 255. Okay, normally in computer science you can also represent it as, let's say, negative 128 to 120, positive 127. That's range of 0 to 255. Okay, now I'm gonna put a like a table in the description below about all the fundamental data types and what are the size of those data types, but I'm going to explain it here in short. In computer science, there are few types of fundamental data types. One of the basic data type is called char. Okay, from character it becomes char, short form. All right, it's called a character or a small integer. Okay, as I told you earlier, its size can be 1 byte. Okay, its size is only 1 byte, and it can store any integer value ranging from negative 128 to plus 127, or 0 to 255. All right, and a second one is called sort int. Okay, sort int can store 2 bytes. All right, that's what a sort int can store. Okay, and its value range from well, positively speaking, 0 to 65535, yeah, and negative 3 to 768 to 3 to 767. All right, if you are just considering positive numbers, that's 0 to 65,535, and if you're also want the number to be in the negative spectrum, then it's starting from negative 32,768 to 32,767. all right, okay. The another one is just called integer. In C++ it's called int. Okay, it's an integer, and it have size of 4 bytes. Okay, it can store pretty big number, and it can store somewhere from about 2.1 billion negative, 2.1 billion positive. So adding those, it's about 4.2 billion. Okay, I would just write 2.1, I guess it's 4, so billion. Okay, negative 2 point that to positive 1.4 billion. Okay, I'll have detailed description about this in the description below. And the other one is called long int is also 4 bytes. Okay, and just remember 4 bytes for now. Here I'm talking about a 32-bit computer. Okay, that's a completely entirely different concept about how many bits of computer you're using. But for C++ and to understand what I'm talking about right now, remember that whatever I'm writing here is usually true for 32-bit computer, 32-bit operating systems. Okay, when you get to 64-bit, depending upon the operating systems, long int can have 8 bytes of character. Okay, it can store up to 8 bytes, and there is something called float. Okay, float are the numbers that can also have decimal values. Okay, float can store pretty big numbers. All right, it can do calculations up to, okay, this one. All right, that's the range, negative to positive. All right, that's the range for a floating point number, and it can store up to 4 bytes again. Double can store up to big number, 1.7, and e plus minus 308. All right, and by the way, double can have pretty close to 15 digits, and it can have up to 7 digits. All right, and there's also something called long double. Normally double is also called double floating point number, but not important right now. So long double, pretty much same thing as double, but depending upon architecture of the computer, 64-bit might store double double the size, might be able to carry up to double the size of double. Okay, and there is also something called boolean. Okay, boolean is just basic computer, true or false, 0 or 1. That's all it can have, 1 or 0. Okay, and it has size of 1 bytes. All right, 0 or 1, or you can also say this as true and false. Okay, and there's also something called we don't use this a lot often, wchar underscore t. Okay, that's a wild character. Oh, sorry, wide character. All right, and it can have somewhere from 2 to 4 bytes. All right, okay, those are the fundamental data types. I'm gonna have a complete description below about this. Now, as I told about the architecture earlier, these are basic data types, and depending on the architecture, what I said is long integer, long double might have power 2 precision, or they might be able to store power 2 amount of variables. Okay, so just all you need to remember right now is that these are fundamental data types: char, integer, double, boolean. Okay, short. You can now in C++, let's go to C++ and use it to declare a variable. Okay, in C++ you have to declare that you will be using a certain variable before using it. All right. So in C++, let's say that you want an integer variable. Okay, you want the computer to memorize integer variables, so you will say int a. Okay, as we told earlier, storing a 23 into a, so we'll say that a will be storing an integer. Okay, that's how you declare it. Or you can say float b. All right, or you can say double c. All right, that's how you can do it. Or if you want to initialize or declare multiple, not initialize, forget about initialize, or if you want to declare multiple variables in the same line, you can also do a, b, c, which is equivalent to writing a, b, c. All right, now we got that, and that's the basic way to declare a variable. And there's also a concept of something called signed and unsigned variables. Okay, signed variables, and the difference between the signed and unsigned, sometimes it is very important. The unsigned variable does not contain negative values. Okay, for example, up here I told that a char can have 0 to 255. That means it is an unsigned variable. Okay, if you declare it to be, let's not go to char right now, let's go to int. Okay, I said the sort int can store from 0 to 65,535. That means it is a signed, it is an unsigned integer if it can only store from 0 to 65,335, 535. Sorry. So if you want to make computer remember a variable that will not have a negative number, or you don't want negative number in any way to those variables, you declare them as unsigned int. So unsigned sort int. Okay, that's how you declare a sort integer, sort int, or you can just write sort, that's not a problem. Sort means sort int. Okay, unsigned sort int, you can declare it that way. Okay. By default, computer thinks if you don't give unsigned or signed at the beginning, computer thinks that that variable is signed. All right, so writing sort int a or signed sort int a are basically the same. Okay, so that's about signed and unsigned, and that is applicable to all of these except char up here. Okay, char and signed char and unsigned char, they are called different from each other. Okay, declaring something as char is not equivalent as signed char, as I told earlier. That was the case for integer. Okay, signed char and char is a totally different character that stores a character. Okay, signed char, if you want to store integer in that range 0 to 255, you can call signed char. Okay, that char will store characters, like it can even store, let's say, symbols. Okay, for example, if you need to store that character somewhere, or that character somewhere, or that character somewhere, then char can do that. Okay, but signed char only stores number, and unsigned char is the same thing. Okay, that's how you declare those things. Now, using these you are now able to declare a variable. You can use those variables later on to do some operations on them, basic operations. So let's write a program to see how it goes on those. Okay, very basic again. Your stream namespace std int main. Okay, so yeah, this is a basic feature that I like. This feature on each and every text editor there is, and I like to pull this kind of things because it helps me know where a parenthesis ends. It's tedious process later on when you start to write complicated programs. So now let's declare two variables. All right, let's say a and b. Okay, and let's also say int c. All right, as we did earlier. And let's declare a as 5, b as, okay, let's make it more complicated. B as 56. Okay, and you can say c to be equals to a plus b. Now you know how to display it on the screen, so cout c and end line. All right, that's the program right there. So I'll save it to my computer programming. All right, now I'll call it as basic.c. okay, so as you can see here, as soon as I said that it's a C file, then it started highlighting the things that it knows about C. Okay, so it's stored. Now let's compile it. G++ basic.c that's all right. It's compiling, takes quite some time of course. So BA 79 tada. All right, so that's, you know how to do those now. You can do very basic form of calculator that already have numbers stored. We'll do on later videos how to get a number. Okay, that will be really useful a lot of times. And you can see a and b as declared as integer. I can also declare them as sort integer because it's pretty manageable for sort integer to declare like that. Depending upon what you need, you might want to consider integer sometime or double sometime, depends. So after that, let's get into something called scope of these variables. Okay, let's say that if I declare a variable up here, let's say I want to declare int x here, int y, right? So these here that are above main are called global variables. It can be used for anywhere in the program. It can be used by anything in the program. Okay, but these variables that I use, these variables that I declare, that can only be used between these and this. Okay, up to that much. This is the scope of these variables right here, a, b and c. Outside this it cannot be used. I told you that main is a function. If you declare another function somewhere, these variables cannot be used in those functions, but these can be. These are called global variables, and the scope of these variables only last where these curly braces ends. Okay, all right, remember that takes you to a problem a lot of times. Okay, another thing is that you can initialize variable when you declare it. By default, C++ initializes variable to random junk. Okay, for example, I declared a variable sort. I'll just make it integer for now. Let's say you declare a and b. and you have defined what the value of a is going to be. But before this, if you want to see what is stored in a, C++ tends to store random, total random junk, okay, in those places. So as you can see, it's 21, 47, 30, 34, 24, okay, but after you say 23 here, it is stored 23 to a and replace that value. You can also initialize a variable. Let's say you don't want that random junk when you start writing a program. So what you can do is you can say it like, you can say that it is 23 right here and declare this as 56 right here, okay, then you will not need these two lines. Very useful. All right, you can also initialize these numbers like that, okay. That's one way to initialize a number, that's the other way. You'll be doing initialization a lot, okay. And there's C, okay. C will have the addition of a and b, but if you want something already in here and that the value you know, then you can do that, okay. That's how you do it. Now there's also another data type called strings, okay. There's a but to have that data type in your program, we normally will include something called C string, okay, and that's a library, okay. It will be using that string data type from C string library. It's a class, string class actually, and it has a lot of different functions. For example, after you do that, you can declare string my name is that, all right, and let's say I want to see out my name that way, okay, and see the result. Oops, C was not declared in this scope, okay. We took the C off, okay, like that. Then with that, there's my name. That's how you do it, okay. You store bunch of characters at the same place, you use string, okay. But if you just want to store one character, you can use char, okay. My char is and oops, my char is just a, and when you declare a string, it have to be inside these double quotes, and declaring chars should have to be inside single quote, okay. Important. All right, that's the very basic program we had. I'll also write return 0 with a successful termination. All right, we got that. All right, now let's see. After that, that's pretty much all about data types and variables in C++. If I missed something, please let me remind it. I'll address that in my next video, and will also answer further questions if there's any questions remaining on this tutorial. Let me know. In the next video, I'm going to talk about constants on C++. It's a very important aspect, and after that we'll get into more of the programming, a lot of different stuff, and I should have next video soon, in about 2 or 3 days. So yeah, please rate, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this was very informative. Thank you.